declare the meeting open now.
Neither do I.
Emergency, the building may be evacuated. You'll be required to vacate to the building by the rear entrance and gather at the breezeway between the library and art gallery buildings. This is Council's designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is anyone permitted to re-enter the building until the all clear has been given. The area deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of an evacuation, the member of council staff will assist any member of the public with a disability to vacate the building. Any apologies?
No apologies, Mr. Mayor.
This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at this council meeting, that you ensure you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this meeting. A recording of this council meeting will be made for administrative purposes. I would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land. I would also like to pay respect to the elders both past and present of the Wiradjuri Nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who are present. Any declarations of interest?
Mr Mayor, I'd like to declare an interest. It's a non-pecuniary interest in the financial section where there is a donation for the women's event at the field days. And I'd love to give you an item number, page number, but wrote it in my diary and didn't bring it. But I'll leave the room, but it's a non-pecuniary interest because Octec are sponsoring the dinner at the Ex-Services Club and I'm the chairman of Octec.
Councillor Floyd.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I've got a non-pecuniary interest in the Infrastructure Policy Committee, Agenda 2.1, minutes of the Orange Traffic Committee, Recommendation 2, as Newcrest is my employer. I'll stay in the chamber if that's okay with the status quo, but I will not vote on that particular issue.
If he stays in the chamber, it's a no vote.
Okay, yep, I'll leave the chamber, yep.
Thank you, Councillor Floyd.
I'll leave. Yep.
Stay if you want.
We'll probably
I'll leave,
declare.
Yep.
Any others? I'll be declaring an interest in the same matter as Councillor Witten since I'm a board member of Octec. Any others? Okay. I'll move on to late items. Councillors, there are two late items. We need a resolution to permit the reports to be heard at this meeting. Item is 4.2, Notice of Motion Mining and Energy Related Councils, and 5.3, Lords Place Upgrade Project Costings.
The late items we dealt with.
Moved by Councillor Witten, seconded by Councillor Evans. All those in favour? Against? Carried. There are no speakers tonight. There are no mayoral minutes. Confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting on 3.1. Can I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Greenhouse, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Any speakers?
I just want to inform Council that our ANZAC committee have met a number of times since we're there because they're so keen and so excited about what we're actually going to do. Ready to go on the banners and photos. And just couldn't get over the excitement within the up there with they were there last week as well. They're well on top of it and they're very much.
Thanks, Councillor Duff. Any other speakers? There being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. Call on Councillor Jack Evans to conduct the Infrastructure Policy Committees.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll open the Infrastructure Policy Committee meeting for the 1st of August at the time being 6:35. I think Councillor Floyd has a declaration of community interest in item 2.1. I'll move on to item 2.1. We have a recommendation on page 5 and I'll get Councillor Floyd to leave the room, please. Thank you, Councillor Mileto. I've informed the CEO of a correction. It's the minutes of the extraordinary City of Orange Traffic Committee meeting. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Power, thank you. Any discussion on this item? Being no discussion, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Thank you, unanimous. Thank you. Move on to item 2.2, minutes of the Airport Community Committee meeting. And Councillor Floyd will come back in. Councillor Floyd will move on to item 2.2, minutes of the Airport Committee meeting on page 145. Recommendation is in front of you. Can I have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Kinghorn, thank you. Councillor McDonald, any discussion on the Airport Community Committee minutes? Councillor Duffy.
Chairman, my question is, in this chamber I spoke about a recommendation naming the roadway out from the southern feeder to the thing about Hazelden Way, and it was discussed at the next Airport Committee, but I see nothing here. So, I know the ins and outs of what the reasons for being withdrawing Jim Hazelden's things, but I expected to see something here from the committee. But in all honesty, I don't think there's any go to the Airport Committee because they're just an organ. I can understand what happens inside the airport, yes, but
Thank you. Mr. CEO.
Through Mr Chair, I think what we're trying to do is formulate a sort of overall attack plan outside of the Airport Committee. And tactics before we'll do it out of the committee.
Yeah. Voted to.
Yeah.
Hey, let's come refocus and.
Yep. But we need a good attack plan to get it right.
Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Thank you. Further discussion on the Airport Committee meeting? Being none, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Yes, thank you. Move on to the current works report, item 3.1 on page 154.
Happy to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten.
Chairman.
Word second, thank you. Any discussion on the current works? Councillor Mileto. Councillor Mileto. Yep. Thank you, Councillor. That's noted. Thank you. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question regarding the high pedestrian activity areas, gridding and stuff that we're doing. And it was around the installation of the Summer Street as you come into that zone. And I was just wondering, is that a Transport for New South Wales thing? Do we need their approval?
Mr. Theakstone.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The HPAA is funded by Transport for New South Wales. Back in 2019, Council resolved to ask Transport for New South Wales, or RMS at the time, to consider installing the HPAA. So we do have to enter into a works authorisation deed with them to install something that they want. There will be 40 signs there.
Okay. Will it have the same treatment, that sort of gridding?
Don't believe so.
Okay. Would be kind of make sense to have it consistent, but.
Thank you. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just on page 155, there's a graph saying that last year there was 1,000 pothole requests, 68,000, quote, pothole accomplishments. I wanted to know what a pothole accomplishment was, and is the disparity between the numbers because they're just not being reported.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's a good question. We've got two types of inspections. There's a routine and an audit inspection. So if somebody rings up and says there's a pothole out the front of their house, that's an audit inspection. We send an inspector out, make sure it's there, count them up, send them out. With a routine inspection, we have a roads inspector. They go around all of Orange's roads based on a hierarchy. The CBD gets inspected, every road gets, and footpath gets inspected every 3 months. A local road would get inspected once a year. They use a geo-referencing type of software. So when the guys find potholes, they send it up to the cloud, and the pothole trucks will wake up in the morning, go to work, look at their iPad, and it shows them where all the potholes are, and they go and fix them. So the 1,000 requests for potholes and the 68,000, so there's 68,000 potholes, so a request could have been for a road that has half a dozen potholes, but also that number is made up of routine inspections as well. The important part is the 68,000 outweighs the 1,000 requests, and it's not the opposite.
Thank you.
I was going to say, I
Duffy.
hope it's a big cloud.
Councillor Duffy, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My questions again is to the acting director. I noticed that and congratulations on finally opening the roundabout at Dalton Street and Clinton Street. It's working quite well. The traffic's going through there. But my question is, it relates to it. It's been going for probably 7 months. And I just want to know why it took 7 months to do when Bathurst Council built 2 of them that only took them a month each. What was the difference? And you can take it on notice. I'm always generous to the staff, senior staff. And can we work out why the difference and the costings of it as well?
Yeah, certainly. I will take it on notice and probably refer it to Ian there, but it would be sub-grade conditions, I'm sure, was the issue, and contaminated soil.
Thank you. Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just following on from the pothole discussion, do we keep data on how many times the same pothole gets repaired?
No, we don't. No, we don't.
Should we?
Well, we do a historical count, so you can imagine the geo-reference history of the potholes. We can see that there's been 100 potholes in this one area over a period of time. So we do that when we're doing asset renewal works.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Anson Street in front of James Sheehan High, there's that roadworks where they've cut the section of road out. I've had a few complaints and I sent a note in and the staff got straight onto it, but I was just wondering why we couldn't put a sign there to say there's a dip. There's a good drop of a foot on either side, like a real good drop.
Yeah, I'll get on. Yeah.
And it sort of sneaks up on you. Even though I went for a drive there to have a look, there's plenty of signage about 40 Ks and roadworks and all that, but there's no warning that the actual road drops. So the concern of the residents around that area, this gentleman was a motorbike rider, so he said he night on a motorbike and he even doing the 40 Ks. The road to be sort of dropping a good few. So I'll let you take that on notice.
Sure thing, I'll get onto that. If anything safety related matters, please report them straight through.
I did put an email through to the...
Right.
They put up a sign that says there was loose stones or something. Yeah.
Mr. CEO.
Through Mr. Chair. Mr. Theakston, asphalting out the front of James Sheehan.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Answer your question, Councillor Whitten.
Certainly did. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Greenhouse.
Very kind of you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the Acting Director. Southern Feeder Road Stage 4, just in relation to the discovery of a naturally occurring asbestos, will you provide a report back to us about how significant that is once it's...
We will indeed. We're just working through it at the moment and we will.
Thank you. Further questions on current works? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Unanimous. I'll close the Infrastructure Policy Committee at 6:45 and hand over to Councillor Mallard for environmental sustainability. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Evans. I will open the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee with the time being 6:45. Item 1.1, declarations of interest. Does anyone have any interest there? There being none, I'll move on to item 2.1, minutes of the Environmental Sustainability Community Committee, 7th of July. There's a recommendation on page 5. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that? Thanks, Councillor McDonnell and Councillor Power. Is there any discussion on this item? Councillor Greenhalgh.
I just wanted to briefly talk to you about the solar panels that are being collected with mattresses and recycled by Molycorp 360. Just wondering if you could expand on that a little bit more, because that's something we sort of weren't aware of previously about solar panels being able to be recycled.
One of the directors, or we might take it on notice and get some information about the detail of it. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Councillor Duffy.
My question is as regards to the urban forest strategy. Just want to know where we're at with that, and where we're at with that as far as consultants are concerned, or do we need consultants? We staff have an understanding of what's happening?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we have engaged consultants, councillor, so we went through a process for that. They're developing, as it indicates, a strategy document for urban forestation of Orange and what that might look like over the next 25 years. And that will come back through both the committees. So there's this committee, and then there's also the Parks, Trees, Waterways committees, and also through Development Services as reference groups.
Further question, councillors, is that will that look at the per capita of what we have to compare to other councils?
Yes, it will.
Existing, what we have?
Yes, it will.
Thank you, Director Morner. Any other discussion? I just wanted to note one of the things on page 7, the waste services overview, as well as Councillor Greenhalgh noting the solar panel recycling that we do have in place. And I know that's an area that's been developing a lot in the past few years in terms of turning that into a circular industry, which, you know, compared to, I saw on the news last week, the decommissioning of and dealing with the ash pits at Wallerawang from the old fossil fuel industries. It's something different that we can turn these products back into something. But the other thing I wanted to note, one of the key takeaways I took, it's really great. We've got low rates of contamination in both the yellow and green bins. That's fantastic. But the big problem that we still need to tackle, and that I think we need to work on building awareness in the community, is we're still seeing 40 to 50% of what's going into red bins is food, organic or garden organic waste. It's stuff that could go into a green bin and be turned into compost, and instead it's going into landfill, which then means, as well as using up our landfill space, it ends up emitting methane as well. So it's a greenhouse gas problem as well. So I thought that was really important, as well as the recyclable materials still going into the red bin. So really, there's a lot more work we've got to do there to try and get people to think about separating their stuff out and using their 3 bins, basically. They're paying for them, and they're paying for the landfill that we're using up as well. So if we can save that money and save those emissions, it'll be a good outcome. Councillor Miletto. I don't think your mic's working.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification. Are you saying that if that food waste goes into a green waste bin, the methane emission will be lower than if it went into a red bin?
Yeah, because it goes through a composting process instead.
Do you know what the percentage is?
Not off. I'd have to.
Sorry?
Sorry, of methane?
Yeah. What the difference is? A red bin compared to a green bin.
Substantially, I would, sorry, Mr.
Yeah.
I would imagine it would be substantially different given that the methane in landfill is sort of contained and it sort of,
It's my understanding, but
sort
it
of
might look.
festers, for want of a better term.
Can we take that on notice and get some information?
Thank you.
Yep. Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just in relation to what you were talking about with people putting things in the wrong bins, might have discussed this with one of the directors last time. We were in the Sunshine Coast in June on holidays, and I just noticed on all of their bins there, it doesn't say general waste, it says landfill. It really does sort of make you think before you think, because it's landfill and recycling, and I just wondered whether maybe that's something we can look at. Obviously, you can't change it all now, but as we replace things, if that just might be something to consider, because it does just make it a bit more out there that that's actually, you're putting it there in the landfill. Just don't even notice when it says general waste because it's just always been there, but just an idea.
Yep, good idea, I think. Yep. Yeah, and I think there was a bit of discussion in this item about the fact that when the waste contract comes up next time around, that can be the time to look at implementing some changes. So maybe that'll be when we are able to look at doing that. Any other discussion on this item? Being none, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Carried. Okay. Thank you, councillors. That concludes the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee meeting with the time being 6:51. I'll call on Councillor Duffy to conduct the Finance Policy Committee.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Mallard, and I declare the Finance Policy Committee open at 6:52. And the first one is declaration of pecuniary interest and significant non-pecuniary interest, etc. And I do believe we have two, and being the Mayor and the Council.
Item point 3 in the recommendation.
Point 3, but when we get to that, we'll probably deal with them at one at a time. Someone like to move that way?
I'm happy to move. Sorry.
To move by Councillor McDonald and seconded by Councillor Greenhill. But no discussion. All those in favour, raise your hand. Against, carried, unanimous. Okay, we now move on to item 2.1, which is the event sponsorship. There's a recommendation on page 6. We'll go on to item number 1.
Move, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Councillor Hamling, seconded by Councillor Whitten. Any discussion?
Oh, just how significant this event is. It brings a lot of people to Orange. If you head out to the sports ground when it's on, the amount of people that's out there, it's amazing how many people in Orange have I was going to say older vintage cars, and you know they take very good care of them. And you know there's a lot of people who this event draws to Orange, so I'm totally in support of this.
Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I totally support this, and I think what it also demonstrates is community spirit, and it gives some of the community organisations, such as Rotary, and that the opportunity to raise money for different organisations, which is then returned back into the community. So I think it's fantastic, and you see the other food vans out there as well. It gives them the opportunity, and I know that the Hockey Association for a number of years have been present out there to raise money for their associations. So I totally support it. Thank you.
Any further comments? I'd just like to endorse what the Mayor has said and Councillor Miletto, and I think one of our biggest supporters of that was the previous councillor in the late Councillor Taylor. He was always a major supporter, especially with his Holdens. I mean, he just loved them. And I believe our two former mayors are on the board of the committee out there. Just shows you how important it is and the importance of the economic direction of Orange. Okay, I'm going to put that recommendation. All those in favour, raise your hand. Unanimous. Against, carried. Dot point number 2, which is a continuation of dot point 1, but it's only doesn't allocate funding. By Councillor Greenhill, seconded by McDonald. Any discussion?
can I just move an amendment that they come back to us and provide a report, as we did with the Food Week, before we commit to years 2 and 3?
I'm happy to.
I'm quite happy to accept a change in the motion, but what's it going to read now?
So, Orange City Council would ask the Nubla's Car, Truck and Bike Show to provide a report to Council after this year before we allocate the further $10,000 for years 2 and 3.
That's following on from the first part. Continuation of the first part of the recommendation was commit to sponsor the Nubla's Truck Bike Show for further 2 years in 25 and 26.
The provision
and
that...
you want to add that provision on there, because it doesn't say how much.
Yeah. Well,
adding that on there to say when it comes back, it says you might only be worth $2,000 or
yep.
15 or whatever the case. So you happy with that?
Yep.
Everyone aware of what the new recommendation, Councillor Mileto?
Thank you, Mr Chair. I would like to speak against the amendment if I can. The reason being, I understand the sentiment of it. Generally, with committees like this, they plan 2 years in ahead. 2 years in ahead, right? Anyway, so the difficulty I see is if they've already planned for next year and the year following, whether that's going to impact on what we're asking them to do. Obviously, an event this size takes a lot of planning, etc. So that's...
Can I just lend you some assistance here? So you're going to move the original item .2, leaving the amended
Yes.
part out.
Yes.
What there is. So I'm happy to second that. So any discussion? Now we have a motion which is inclusive of the report, and we have an amendment which is Councillor Mileto's, which I will second. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Look, I'll speak against the amendment. Yes, I mean, they can't have completely planned for 25 and 26 because they've asked for funding. So, I mean, I think a report is it's a reasonable sum of money. I think a report is a very reasonable thing to be provided. Not necessarily saying, you provide a report but it's definitely, I just don't see the problem with it.
Okay. Mr CEO, I'm going to ask the Director to make a comment on that after Councillor Whitman speaks.
No, I'm happy to hear from the CEO first because he might answer the question. What's the comment, Mr Chairman?
Director to run this process, thank you.
Question.
What we're asking is the question of the process.
So sorry, can I just ask a question? So the motion is
Doesn't come back.
As an amendment,
which is
as printed.
Before the Director speaks, I will speak, Mr Chairman. I'm supporting the amendment, speaking for the amendment. The reason I speak for the amendment is that if you look at the report from Nubla's, at no time since 2017, only probably historical reporting, it probably goes further back, have they ever asked for any money from council? Ever. They've run this program themselves for possibly even and I believe, and then the Director will clarify if even though we approve the further 2 years, 25, 26, it will still come back to this chamber to be ratified again when they put in their application for the 10 grand, right? It's just that we're fitting it into our budget to allocate the 10 grand should they apply. Sorry, thank you, Mr.
Through you, Mr Chair. So that is correct. So the decision that you're making tonight is if you do commit to 2 years further funding, the amount would come back. The way that we do that as part of our program management is we actually use that as committed funds for the forward year. So out of the amount that we have for 100,000, we would allocate that in 2025. There's some committed funds. Of the 10,000 in 2026, there's also committed funds, but it's a decision that comes back to the chamber for the amount and the funding of the amount in those 2 years.
So just a point of clarification through, if I can. So how silly would we look if we commit to it now and then it comes back before us and we go, oh no, sorry. My concern is we allocate, like we've already got 11,450 allocated. Like we're already bringing it down, to 80,000 that we're going to have. My concern. We don't know what future projects are coming forward.
Be a different council.
That'd be a different year's budget.
Correct, that's right.
So it wouldn't be the same this year's budget. It'd be next financial year. That $10,000, like 10,000 this year.
Have any further speakers for?
Sorry, I just make comment on that. But we've already got committed for 2024-25, 11,500.
Can I interrupt you, Councillor Greenhill? You're the mover of the motion. You have the right of reply. Taking that right of reply now.
Yes, thank you. That would be my concern, is that we keep committing stuff in advance. Our pot of money for 24-25 keeps getting smaller when we don't know what events are coming up before us. So I will be speaking against, voting against the amendment.
We have the debate has been closed because the motion
sorry.
has been
Okay, that's all right. I'll ask in the next bit.
Has been closed by the mover of the motion. I'm going to put the amendment first as Councillor Miletto's. All those in favour of the amendment, raise your hand. Against? 3, 4, 6. We don't have a casting vote, do I?
Does the policy committee chair have casting? All policy chairs have casting.
Okay, I'm going to vote in favour of the amendment. Now the amendment becomes a motion. All those in favour of the motion, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. 10. 10. Those against? Donald and Councillor Greenhill. I declare the motion carried. Now we move on to dot point 3, which is the Australian National Field Days. Councillor Hamling and Councillor Whitten have declared an interest. Okay, there's a recommendation there. 3, someone like to move it? Move Councillor McDonald, seconded Councillor Floyd. Any discussion?
Thank you. It's just a general question, actually, which is what I was going to ask before. From last year, we had a balance of $17,280 out of the $100,000 because we didn't use it. Does that get added into this year, or does it just get absorbed into general revenue?
Thank you, Councillor Kinghorn, for the question through you, Mr Chair. That's correct. It gets just absorbed back into our general revenue. It doesn't actually get added to this year's budget.
Use it or lose it. Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, raise your hand. Unanimous. Hamling back in. Councillor Hamling and Councillor Whitten, the vote on item dot point 3 was unanimous. That's the $2,000 to go towards the ladies gathering at the Australian National Field Days. Dot point 4, sponsor two-wheel tours for an amount of $5,000 for the Goodness Gravel Orange event to be held in November 2023. Do we have a mover or a seconder? Move Councillor McDonald, seconded Councillor Floyd. Have any discussion? Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Mr Chair, and I think the event certainly looks very interesting. It is a private company for profit as opposed to some sort of community event. However, I acknowledge the impact to encourage cycling visitation in Orange. So given those thoughts, I would like to make an amendment offering a smaller amount than the $5,000, offering $2,500 instead.
Second, Mr Chairman. So you're moving an amendment to $2,500.
Please.
We have a motion and we have an amendment. Any speakers for the motion or the amendment? I'll speak for the amendment. Number one, because I think along the lines of this is a push bike event. I think it's absolutely fantastic because this is where we're pushing with Mount Canobolas and all those other issues that we're dealing with push bikes. But it is an opportunity that we're dropping their funding down. But I would have also expected probably Council may ask for a report to come back on the event, because I don't like seeing a word assume being used at all. So I'm going to support the amendment. Any further discussion? Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mr Chair. I'll speak against the amendment, and I do understand them being a for-profit company. I'm sensitive to that sort of issue as well. But they've applied and provided a balanced budget. If we reduce the amount that we're giving them, then we're putting them in a situation that they've got to figure out how they're going to deal with that. I'm looking at the fact that they're looking at things like organising local music artists to be performing as part of it, compared to things like medical services and the other things that they need to actually sustain the event. I'd be worried that they look at the discretionary stuff, which is actually engaging local businesses as well, and that's where they end up cutting. So I would prefer that we award the full amount if we're going to award them money.
Any further speakers for the amendment or the motion? No further speakers. I'm going to put the amendment. All those in favour of the amendment, raise your hand. 2, 3, 4, 7. Thank you. Against? 3, 4, 5. I declare the amendment to become the motion with a vote of 7-5. And now I put the motion. All those in favour of the motion? 5, 6, 7, 8. Unanimous. And now we move on to dot point 5, which is sponsorship of Central West Mulyan, an amount of $4,000 for the Koori Knockout. We'll move in a second.
Happy to move for discussion.
Been moved by Councillor Greenhalgh. We have a seconder. Councillor Peterson. Any discussion? Councillor Miletto.
Just some points of clarification, if I can have the director up to answer them, if that's okay, please. Thank you. At page 32. Central West Mulyan hospice available via New South Wales Aboriginal Land Rights Association. Can you explain what that means to me? Applicant's details. Page 32.
I'd have to take that on notice, I'm sorry, as I wouldn't be able to question right now, but I can take it on notice and come back because I'm not quite sure what that means as in the auspice of the New South Wales Aboriginal Land Rights Association.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Page 34. I'm just looking at the breakdown. I guess my next question before I get to the breakdown is, are these members part of a club or an affiliate association? Are we aware of that? I can't see any detail there.
Again, I'll come back for clarification, but my understanding is not an associated club, that those players have come together across different groups to form this team.
Councillors, we have a motion on our books, and I'm quite happy to move an amendment or a deferral until we come back with some relevant questions that have been asked.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but I need to know the information before I can vote on any amendment, that's all. Dave? Are we?
That's what the Chair just...
That is amendment.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure.
But you're seconding the motion for deferral till we come back with more information. Up to you. Someone else wanted to declare?
For deferral.
Okay. Seconded by Councillor Mallett. Sorry, Councillor.
I'll just, so if anyone's got any questions, director know what the questions are, and I think that's where Councillor...
Yeah, that's where I'm coming from. Yeah, so these are the questions. Which
they're quite legitimate questions because, I mean, it's not held in Orange. It's not, we don't know what the
No, and my next, and thank you, Mr. Chair, and that's why I realise there's being deferred, but these are questions which I'd like answered. Page 34, coaches times 2 for 2-hour sessions for the 8 weeks, 1,300. I'm just wondering, are they local coaches? There are some questions which 4-day event management, $1,500. I understand the sentiment here. I just need more information before I can make an informed decision. Thank you.
Just through you.
Any further discussion?
Yep.
Sorry, I'll let the director have a comment and then you can come back.
Through you, Mr. Chair. This one is a bit of a challenge because it doesn't actually fit our criteria of any of our donations and grants and sponsorship as sort of been written in the paper. So even with the application, it doesn't actually meet the criteria as per the event sponsorship application. However, we've put it in because this is probably the only funding source that could be considered for this application. But I will take those questions on notice and come back with some clarification, because they're asking for branding and uniforms is what they're asking council to sponsor, not actually the event.
Thank you. Councillor Greenhill.
Yeah, so I would probably just echo Councillor Miletto's. I think $4,000 to have our council logo on the side of a playing jersey, not in orange, for a one-day event. I absolutely love the Koori Knockout and I'm a big supporter of it. But my other question would be, what other councils from Condobolin and so forth have they also asked for money? And even just coming down to the cost of uniforms, they're pretty expensive uniforms for, a squad of 20 with 15 staff. It's $251 per player. And, the portion of the money they're asking us, would be $114 per person that we're coughing up for. And, I don't think it passes the pub test with what we're getting in return.
Any further comments for or against the motion? Got the amendment. We're going to put the amendment first. All those in favour for deferral? Matter is unanimous and now becomes a motion. Use that motion. Put the motion for deferral. All those in favour, raise your hand. Again, it's unanimous. Point number 6, sponsors Mortimer Wines, an amount of $5,000 for Girls Out of Summer to be held on the 15th of December 2023.
I'd like to move it, but with an amendment. So that we sponsor for an amount of $3,000. Can I just talk to my reasons for it first before I get a seconder, or can I
need a seconder?
Happy to second.
Thank you. Mainly because looking at the balance sheet, they've asked for $5,000, but their income they're generating is $8,000. Their expenditure is $6,000. It just doesn't add up. There's an extra $2,000 that they're getting somewhere. There's no mention of it being donated to a charity or any particular cause. I just can't see. It just doesn't add up. I guess there's just an extra $2,000 there that accounted for that we're giving the event organisers.
Okay, we have a mover and a seconder for the motion to come back to $3,000, was it?
To $3,000.
Just for $3,000. Any further comment for or against? Councillor Greenhill.
Can I just have a point of clarification? I'm not sure if anyone's got the answer. Is this event just for school teachers or is it open to the whole community?
Thank you, through you, Ms. Chair. It's for school teachers of the community.
Any further discussion, councillors? Councillor Peterson.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to support the amendment. I was a bit reluctant. It seemed like a private business with pretty limited support from participants or any other sponsors for quite a small group of admittedly quite worthy people. So I was certainly put against or offer a smaller amount, which
Councillors, I'm going to speak against the motion simply along the lines of the fact is it's only specifically for teachers. Why do we have one for plumbers? Do we have one for miners? Do we have one for whoever the case may be? And that's the terminology that I look at it, and I can't see where any of the money's going. And look, I know teachers work extremely hard under some circumstances as well, but so do a lot of other industry people as well as Adele. And to say that it's going to be it's a non-profit and things like that and have it at a winery, I mean, they're going to drink the wine, aren't they, at the winery? So it's I question that. So I'm going to speak against it, and I'm happy if the motion gets defeated, I'll move a motion that we not support it. Any further comments, Councillor Evans?
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. I'll support is the motion for 3,000.
Yep.
I agree with the smaller amount based on the comments on the balance sheet, but when we say the miners and the tradies and the business people don't get an event like this, we have the Master Builders Award and the Business Chamber Awards, which is an occasion for people of like-minded industry to let their hair down and celebrate the wins of the year. And I think this offers the opportunity for the demographic of teachers that, to my knowledge, don't have such an event to get together, network, and as it says in the application, it's all the smaller community schools like Marion and the surrounds. So it's not necessarily just the big schools, but I think it's going to be a good community event. Thank you.
Any further speakers? No further speakers. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, raise your hand.
The amendment, sorry.
It's the motion is for 3,000. Yeah. All those in favour, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Against? 1, 2, 3, 4. I did a very good count, Mr. I declare the motion carried 8 votes to 4. And now we move on. There's no other item, but I've just got a question for the CEO. It's about the issue of the voice. I know very well that our council's supporting the voice, and I don't have a problem with that at all. I know the majority of council on the vote. My question is, have we spent any money as a council on the voice? Because I don't believe we have the authority to do that, whether it be in kind or whatever.
Well, Mr. Chair, I think we do. And yes, we are spending a very modest amount of money. We are doing things like helping with printing, a bit of limited catering for the community sessions that are being held. Do note also that the voice grouping won a nice grant themselves, which is covering a lot of the costs.
Last part was part of my question, but the question was, can we have a report come to us to see what actually money we've spent for the recommendation that went through council?
I could provide such a report.
Thank you. Any further matters for finance? No further matters. I'll declare the finance meeting closed at 7:16 and call on Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Open the Services Policy Committee. I know where that is. It's just in the wrong spot, isn't it? Can we get big ones behind us? Then they're there, but they're... Anyway, sorry. Time being 7:15, 17. Any declarations of interest? Nope. All right. Item 2.1, minutes of the Community Safety and Crime Prevention Committee meeting. Recommendations, page 5, and I'm after a mover and a seconder, please.
Happy to move it.
Councillor Miletto, thank you, Councillor Floyd. Any discussion? Thank you, Councillor Miletto.
Yeah, just regards to a comment by the police inspector with regards to comment made with regards to 50% of the crime being conducted by 14 youths. And I was at that meeting, as were a number of other councillors, but I guess the question wasn't asked at the time was the background of these children who were committing the crime, whether they were from a family environment, whether they were from under the direction or control of the relevant minister. And yes, I'm just interested to know from that point of view, is there something as a community we can do? If there's been a cutback in funding to help these people who are fortunate situations under the control of the minister. But yeah, it's just I found that that number quite interesting in some. I just would like more information on that. Thank you.
Okay. I pass it to you, Mr.
Take it on
CEO.
notice, and absolutely.
Any other discussion? Just like to again state my disappointment that DV still accounts for at least 60% of these responses, and they attend to. Yeah, I'll put the motion. All those in favour.
Sorry, can I matter to Rod? Yeah,
Sure.
just an item number 2 for Chief Inspector Atkins, whose appreciation. I was chair of the crime committee for a while, and he was very good. He came to the meetings and gave us the relevant information, and I understand he's taken up another position. Yeah, that letter. Thanks.
Excellent. In that case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. Item 2.2, minutes of the Spring Hill Community Committee meeting. Recommendations, page 23. Do I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Floyd and Councillor Kinghorn. Any discussion? In that case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. Item 2.3, minutes of the Clifton Grove Community Committee meeting, the 22nd of June. Recommendations on page 41. Mover and a seconder, please. Sorry, Councillor Duffy, is there anything you'd like to? Excellent, thank you. Councillor Kinghorn is seconding. Any discussion? Fantastic. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. Item 2.4, minutes of the Lucknow Committee meeting of the 29th of June. Page 61 has the recommendation and a mover and a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Evans. Thank you, Councillor Mallard. Any discussion on this?
Madam Chair, just like an update on footpath, please.
You read my mind.
Oh,
Pass it on to one of the directors. Footpath along the highway. Are we still waiting on Transport for New South Wales to say yes?
Through you, Chair. That is part the answer. The other part is we're currently in design. It has some complexities, that job. And Transport, yes, the complexities. It's in design and about come out of design to works.
Okay, so do we have a rough time frame on when we're sort of any chance
couldn't-
stuff happens before Christmas?
I couldn't answer that. I'm sorry. I'm not privy to that at the moment.
Councillor Miletto?
expecting it with the complexities for it to go over the allocated budget?
I don't believe so, no.
Councillor Miletto?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to the Acting Director. Are you able to elaborate on what the complexities are? It just appears to be, I might be I'm ignorance here, just appears to be a slight hill there. Is that the problem, or?
No, there's some complexities with encroachments on the actual road reserve, and we're trying to design this in sympathy to possible Transport for New South Wales future plans.
So are you suggesting they're going to widen the road there, are you? Or?
No, council won't be widening.
No, I didn't say that. Transport New South Wales, I'm wondering what why they see it as being complex. I mean, I'm assuming there's been some information provided to council as to why there's been a hold up in it. So I'm just wondering what their concerns are or the complexities are with regards to it. Is there been some report provided by Transport for New South Wales that council is unaware of?
No. Transport aren't holding it up on any complexities. We're just dealing with the actual road encroachments and getting around those.
Thank you.
Sorry, while you're there, I'll just ask a quick question regarding the letter we were going to send off asking for the reduced speed limit. I was wondering if that letter's been sent and have we had a response?
I'm sorry, I don't know.
Okay.
I'll chase that up, though.
Any other discussion? Yep, excellent. In that case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. Item 2.5 is the minutes of the NAIDOC week. Community Committee meeting on the 6th of July. Page 93 has the recommendation. And can I have a move? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Whitten and Councillor Mallard. Any discussion? Nope. All those in favour? Another unanimous one. And lucky last, item 2.6, minutes of the Orange Health Liaison Committee meeting of the 2nd of May. Gosh, that feels like a very long time ago. A mover and a seconder. Are you moving, Councillor Kinghorn? Yep. And seconded by Councillor Mallard. Discussion?
Are we still keeping records on COVID and influenza? Because, well, getting out of control again.
Sorry, can
Are you referring to anybody in particular?
No, I'm not. It's
South
just
Wales
a.
Health keeps New South Wales Health keeps track of confirmed cases.
Yep.
The problem with COVID now, as I understand it, is that you don't. I mean, now PCR tests cost money. There's no requirement to isolate really. Like the restrictions around it and reporting are basically non-existent. So keeping accurate records of the cases is basically impossible. That's my understanding. Is that your understanding, Councillor King?
Yeah, so you need to register your positive case if you want to access antiviral treatment. If you don't, then there's no advantage in registering it, and most people don't. But the numbers are down actually from what they were a couple of weeks ago. Every Thursday, New South Wales Health releases the stats for New South Wales, and it was only about 4 weeks ago that we had a lot of cases and 94 people dying in New South Wales in 1 week and 1,300 people in hospital. But last week it was down to 50 people dying, which is still too many, but it's a lot less. And the number of people in hospital was down to under 900 as well. So with the stats that they do have, it's coming down. So
they're not accurate. COVID ones anyway.
Thank you.
Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Looking at dot point 3.3, where it's talking about investigate and invest in promoting no smoking or no vaping. I give up smoking in 1996, but I'm understanding that vaping
Congratulations.
is a way of helping them give up smoking. Is that the case? I'm not. I mean, I see guys waiting to go out to various places and they have a vape.
I'm more than happy to pass this on to Councillor Peterson to answer your question.
How many people have we prosecuted in Summer Street for smoking in Summer Street in our smoking zone? I don't think we've prosecuted anyone, have we?
Chair, not
One.
our job
Is that
to
right? Is that correct?
prosecute.
You put it in for one?
Who director's keen to answer this one, Chair?
While Director
come up with the same figure.
Hodges is walking up, I might get
Just come on.
Councillor Duffy. While Director's coming to the microphone, I might let Councillor Peterson make his remarks. Councillor Peterson.
I need to just add comment to my fellow councillor. Sadly, the majority of people that vape also smoke cigarettes as well. It's unfortunately not been shown that the majority of people anyway that vaping is a way off smoking, although I acknowledge it probably happens for some people. There's some known harms in terms of whacking pneumonias and stuff. I think it probably is less harmful than smoking, but it doesn't appear to be a easy substitute for the majority. So still something that, having sort of a no vaping and no smoking, just give that distinction that they are both things that we don't necessarily encourage or want in a public space because of the harm for user.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. And Director Hodges.
Through you, Madam Chair. Keeping in mind that some of the legislation that relates to smoking and the smoke-free environment is not, the regulatory authority is not council. It's the New South Wales Health. So in relation to how many people have been fined in Post Office Lane or the other areas that council's identified in policies as being smoke-free, the answer is find anyone. And identified in the policy that it's a self-enforced policy encouraging people with compliance and not a punitive.
Councillor Kinghorn.
So just in response to Councillor Duffy's remarks as well, the problem with most vapes is that they're not being regulated properly. So there are some, to get nicotine containing vapes in New South Wales, you actually need a prescription. Those products are clearly labelled with what's in them, and they're probably okay, but most of the ones that people access are ones that don't say what's in them. And when they have been tested, there are things like acetone and all sorts of other things in there which are carcinogenic. So from something that originally was promoted as being able to help people stop smoking, and there's probably still a role for that, it's gone to a whole nother level, and it's actually becoming quite a big health problem. So it is something that does need to be looked at.
Any other discussion? Okay, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. Just before I close the meeting, I just did want to put Director Maunder on the spot and ask him where we're at with the Showgrounds group having a meeting.
Through you, Madam Chair, we've not heard back from the Showground group since we met with them. And I am awaiting the report on the shed. So as soon as we get that, we'll schedule it. But as to feedback following that committee meeting, I've not had any yet.
What about that event? Has that been resolved?
I have certainly been discussing that event with the person that raised it at that meeting. So there was some complexities around that event and what it conflicted with. We proposed 4 other dates, of which they all said was unsuitable for them.
Right.
So really the date that they've asked for is the only date that suits them, but we already have a substantial event on site, so that will take some work to work through. So it may not be possible. We are
you
talking
can
to them.
keep us in the loop on that one, though. Anything else for discussion under services? Right, in that case, I'll close the meeting and I'll hand back to our mayor.
Thanks, Councillor McDonald. Move on to item 4.1 is notice of motion. I have a mover and a seconder. Removal of trout closed season in Macquarie and Turon Rivers. Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Greenhouse, seconded by Lloyd.
I can.
Oh, sorry, you moved the motion. Yeah, seconded it. There you go. I got it around the wrong way. Sorry. You're into me.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted tonight to, asking Council to acknowledge in the chamber the New South Wales DPI Fisheries recent decision to remove trout fishing closed season in parts of the Macquarie and Turon Rivers. Just to summarise it very quickly, Mr. Mayor, we've being a keen fisher myself, a lot of fishermen and fisher ladies around Orange District. Up until this year, the 13th of June, we have been unable to fish in certain areas of New South Wales in the Macquarie and the Turon River systems from the King's Birthday long weekend in June through to the October long weekend, just to give these salmonoid species the freedom to spawn. Challenged. Personally, myself, I've been against this for probably the last 30 years to get something done, and finally something has been done in a positive note, and that's why I thought I would just mention this here in the chamber tonight, because it's very hard to get these sort of decisions out of like government areas like this. Very, very difficult, and there's a lot of people have already contacted me to say they're over the moon about this, because basically now we can target what has been 2 pest species of fish in this area, the European carp and the redfin fish. We can now target them in times when we haven't been able to do that in the past, and they've of course been able to breed and success their own little groups, little fishing, like the species of those fish are very, very prolific breeders as well. So to have access to these fish, to be able to fish for them and get them out of the systems is great. So that's why I just thought I'd bring this in tonight. It's a big win for us fishermen. Not only that, for family groups, for the tourism, for people in tackle stores. It's just a win-win situation, and I just thought that we all should just reflect and say thank you to the DPI Fisheries for doing this. It's a big win for all us fishers, and I'm very excited about it. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Kinghorn.
So, a point of clarification. I understand that that's riveting and good, but I don't understand what's the benefit of acknowledging it in the chamber here. I'm sorry, I don't. Can somebody explain why that matters? I don't get it.
You know, I certainly realise there's a lot of us that aren't fishermen, that like fishing, but I just thought it was a thing for the people of Orange that are very keen fishermen like myself. Mr. CEO over there who loves to fly fish. It's just something that I thought we needed to just say thank you to the DPI fisheries for doing, because as I said, things like this are very hard to get pushed through, and people have been trying, as I say, for probably 30 years to try and get the acknowledgement that these rivers should be open for recreational fishing all year round. And now that it's finally happened, I just thought it was something that I could do here in the chamber just to say thank you to the DPI for what they have done and opening up these areas for a lot of the keen fishers that are in Orange and surrounding districts to go and enjoy their sport all year round.
Councillor Mileto.
Thank you. Look, I appreciate the sentiment of the motion, and I thank the councillor for putting it forward. I'm just a little bit confused as to why it is, as Councillor Kinghorn is, Macquarie is, and the other river, Huron, isn't in our LGA. I understand the sentiment. I'm not sure why we're looking at issues which aren't within our LGA.
Councillor Floyd and I talked about this when the motion came up. As you know, the budget last year included some stocking money for fish, and Council's been dealing with the Department of Fisheries extensively over the last few months, and also orange trout acclimatization. And we discussed the fact that a lot of ratepayers are involved here, and this is of great interest, and fisheries are a stakeholder, are indeed represented up the street.
Not for me, it doesn't, because we're not replenishing our own fishing stocks in this local area. I understand the sentiment, but I don't see what benefit apart from the people buying fishing equipment or bait or whatever to go somewhere else. I just don't understand. But if we're just acknowledging it, happy to do so. I just don't understand the relevance of it, to be quite honest. But
Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, I'm going to support the recommendation or the comments from my partner alongside me here. There's a lot of people in Orange that travel to Burrendong, they travel to Wyangla, they travel to a lot of dams like Lyle and Lithgow and all those places, and they absolutely love fishing. We are not lucky enough to have a river going through our city, otherwise we'd get a lot more money. But I am concerned that we're going to get this information out here, and by raising it in the chamber, it's going to be, I'm pretty sure Will Davis from the CWD will ring my friend up here and say, listen, what's this all about? And it's a good result, because people will be in the paper or be on social media, whatever the case may be, and they say, oh, hang on, we can fish over here now. Great idea, thank you.
Councillor Whitten.
Mr Mayor, look, I'll support it, and I do acknowledge Councillor Kinghorn and Councillor Mileto's asking the question of what the relevance is, but at the end of the day, we are a regional council. We are, even though we may not have these particular rivers running through our LGA, we look at the bigger picture. And Councillor Floyd is very passionate about it, and the only way he can raise the matter in this chamber is to have a motion. So he's followed chamber process. He's raised a motion, staff have allowed it to come to chamber, and we're now debating it. And he has and it gives him that vehicle to raise issues. It's not the first time that we've raised motions in this chamber that have nothing to do with Orange City Council. Generally happens every council meeting. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Floyd, for the motion. And I'm happy to support it as well, but I probably come at it from a bit of a different angle. And that's I'm supportive of removing protection on trout, because they're an introduced species that is a threatening process in our waterways. They're unfortunately one that, like a number of other things that have been introduced into this country, there's no turning back, and we're never going to eradicate them. But I'm all for lifting the season that allows them to breed, because they are a threat to native species. I read some interesting stuff in getting set for this motion. I won't say too much about it, but if people want to look at it later, got a 2013 article on The Conversation by Susan Lawler, Rabbits of the River, Trouts Are Not Native to Australia. A research study by Simon Kaminskis from the Murray-Darling Basin Authority in Pacific Conservation Biology, looking at evidence to demonstrate that the introduction of trout into the lower Goodra-Digby River has had an impact on native fish in that area. And the Invasive Species Council as well, also noting that at the moment trout are a major risk to 22 threatened small fish species. Now, again, they're not in our area, and again, we're not going to eradicate trout here. But the thing I'd say, what the existence of this closed fishing season demonstrates is the conflicted position that New South Wales Fisheries and the other state fishing agencies are in, and these papers have gone to that point, that they're tasked with protecting native fish species, yet at the same time they're trying to look after the interests of recreational fishers by restocking with introduced species as well. So if you look at the fish stocking data for Gosling Creek Reservoir, they're putting Murray cod in there, they're putting golden perch in there, but they're also putting in brown trout and rainbow trout. They're putting in the introduced species that threaten them as well. It just makes absolutely no sense at all. So I'm all for go after the carp and the redfin, Councillor Floyd, but the trout as introduced species as well are doing damage along the way too. Thanks.
Any other speakers? No other speakers. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. Late item 4.2, mining and energy related councils. Mover?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Any speakers?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to be quick. Probably been one of the better conferences I've ever been to, actually, as far as information and things like that. But one of the things that I want to highlight is the issue of nuclear energy was spoken about at that conference, and we had Robert Parker there, who has actually played for people who come from America and all these other places from everywhere as to what's comes and how it has zero emissions and all those type of things there, and the benefit it is. But it was interesting to note at the Australian Local Government Conference that a resolution got up by 2 votes to ask the federal government to look at the nuclear energy and look at the issues of or reversing the uranium legislation that's there. But also do note that Robert Parker also interviewed the Greens leader in Finland. Yes, so they're in support of the of nuclear energy over there. So there is a swell within the whole community, no matter which side of politics you belong to. They say, hey, listen, it's something we've got to look at, and it's something we've got to, if we're fair dinkum about reducing the prices. Because I know that Penny Sharp did say at the conference that we'd have to be a little bit wary about whether we're going to meet those targets that we're trying to do.
Councillor Miletto, did you want to say anything? No, sorry.
No, I just wanted to thank Councillor Duffy for his report. It was very informative, and it certainly gave me a better understanding about some of the issues which were discussed down there. So thank you, Councillor. It was greatly appreciated.
Councillor Mallard.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Duffy, for the report. Yeah, I do want to make the observation. It's a bit disappointing, I guess, to see, organisations like this still chasing and thinking about solutions that we don't need when the ones that we need are already available. Yeah, nuclear, and at the National General Assembly that we all attended in Canberra, I was in the room for Saul Griffith's talk from Rewiring Australia, where he was asked directly about the nuclear motion that was coming up, and I'd encourage those of us who attended, we've got access to the videos. I've already watched it back once. I'm going to watch it again. His answer on that, he's not anti-nuclear by any means, but he sees no role for it in Australia whatsoever. Solar and wind combined with storage can do what we need. Nuclear is massively expensive. It will take too long to build to manage what we actually need to do, which is reduce our emissions rapidly to tackle climate change. Thanks.
Any other? Councillor Kinghorn.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I quite enjoyed reading this. Thank you, Councillor Duffy. I was surprised at the comprehensive report. I was curious about the keynote speaker, Kate Minter from the Rewiring Australia. With those steps needed to get to zero emissions by 2050, one of those is become part of the Australian Electrification Association. Is that at an individual level, or were they suggesting that councils become part of it? What was the council role in that?
The whole conference revolved around energy and getting cheaper energy for from whatever source, there was an agreement to say, look, okay, there was no doom and gloom in the room about if we don't do this, we're going to all die, whatever the case may be. It was about the economics of what was happening, whether it be solar, wind, or nuclear, whatever the case may be. It was looking at a way forward so we can make cheaper energy more and more affordable for people, because we've got governments, both sides, the current government, the federal government saying, oh, we're going to reduce power, we're going to reduce this. We've had the previous government do the same thing. We've had the state government say the same thing. But every time we've seen it go up and up and up, and I'm not 100% sure, I don't look at my electricity bill. Do they collect GST on it? I mean, if we collect GST on it, it's never going to come down, is it? Building office. Did I answer your question or not?
No, but that's okay.
So I reckon.
Thank you.
You'll take that on notice.
I'll take that one on notice, but you're quite welcome to ring Greg Lamont or the service providers as well.
Yeah, I'll just make a quick comment because I was at that conference for the last part. Yeah, it was interesting hearing all the speakers and having conversations with different people, but having it all on the table in front of everyone just to discuss and hear different experts from different fields. Everyone's not going to agree on everything. We all know that, but having the different models and just listening to people who are experts. That's the main thing. Because I'm not an expert. I've got no idea. But I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. I'll move on to general reports. 5.1, strategic policy adoption. No, I'll do that. That's another late item. I'll deal with at the end.
Happy to move the recommendations.
Second it, Mr Mayor.
Any speakers? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Oh, sorry. Councillor Mallard.
Yep. Just wanted to thank the staff for work on these policies that, we've been around with these and thank the councillors who came to the workshops on them as well. And the social media was the one I had concerns on, but I think the changes that have been made are all great and really appreciate that.
I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. Item 5.2, can I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Floyd, seconded by Councillor Power. Any speakers? Councillor Greenhalgh.
Just a question or a point of clarification. What falls into the meetings, functions, council business?
That's a very good question. Councillor Director Rob, can you answer that one? I want to get that wrong.
Page that we're referencing, if that's okay.
Page 44.
45.
Yep.
Take that on notice, actually, Mr. Chair. Okay.
Certainly.
Back to you, Councillor.
Councillor Kinghorn.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I had the same question, but we'll wait for that. Training and development, is that compulsory or not? My understanding was that we were supposed to do it, but it looks like we're not all doing it. And the quality of some of it's pretty crappy. So if we don't have to do it, or if we do have to do it, can we have some that's sort of pre-vetted as being appropriate and useful and beneficial for the community?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the question in there is it compulsory? Yes. Training like code of conduct is compulsory. Other training like problem solving is not compulsory. At the start of each new council, we go through the needs that might be there. It's not compulsory, and there's a bit of a self-assessment there whether you think you need training as well. But first bit of your question, is.
Okay. All right. So that's fine. So we had to fill out a form saying where we thought that our shortcomings were, and then we're presented with a list of options to do that. And being new, then I think it's a good idea to have some training and development, because it is a different world to the world that I previously inhabited, and I still struggle to navigate it sometimes because it's just seems to be a different way of thinking to the way I think. So that's why I was doing that. But seriously, that problem-solving one it really was a waste of council's money, and I will never get that day back. And
yeah, next meeting on the 15th of August, there'll be a report on councillor training coming out, and you'll see, I think it would be fair to say, depending on the longevity of councillors, some of the councillors have been in the game for many years, and you'll see they don't do those sort of trainings anymore. It does wax and wane. But I do take point, make a very large note about the problem-solving training, and happy for any feedback on any training you do.
The one on the ARIC, the Audit and Risk Improvement Committee, was really good. I thought that was really, really useful because that did help me to understand how things work. And that's part of the problem sometimes is that, as I said, you guys think differently to the way I do, and having a bit of an insight into that was actually really useful. So that one was good, but it was only $400. Stick to the cheaper ones, I think.
Yeah, would it be fair to say, councillors, the local government finances was... Anyway, feedback welcome. Thank you. Sorry, Chair.
Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, and just I read the media report earlier about Councillor Kinghorn's workshop, and I went looking to remind myself. It's Section 185 of the Local Government General Regulation 2021 has the bit, and it's pretty new, I think, to this term of council, if I'm remembering correctly, for an ongoing professional development program for councillors and mayors. So it's worth taking a look at that because it sets out the process that the CEO, referred to as the general manager in the regs, needs to go through. And the final point that I will note is that it does say a mayor or other councillor must make all reasonable efforts to participate in any ongoing professional development program delivered to the mayor or councillor in accordance with the requirement under this section. So, yeah, and I do think, I guess one of the things we can learn from this or take from it is, yeah, it's probably worth us sharing among ourselves our experience of what the different professional development
courses
we've done is. For example, I did the Domestic Violence New South Wales program last year. I know I recommended it to Councillor McDonald. She's done it and thought it was great as well. I remember overhearing Councillor Greenhalgh at one point give some informal feedback on one thing she'd done, so I knew not to look at doing that one. So yeah, I think it's worth, we've got these opportunities for professional development. You can never know for certain how good or bad a course is going to be until you get in there and do it. But yeah, if we've got 12 of us and we are looking at doing, potentially some of us doing things that others have done, it's probably worth us trying to share that sort of feedback along the way. Thanks.
Greenhalgh.
Yeah, and I'd just like to echo what Councillor Kinghorn and Councillor Mallard have said. I think some of the local government ones that you do online are really a bit of box ticking, and some of them are very expensive. I think the one that I found most useful was probably the one I think you were talking about, Mr. CEO, that we did early on, and a few of us went to Molong and did it in conjunction with those guys. That was very well run and very, very informative. But I think, like as a new councillor, I think some of those ones you probably need to do a refresher every so often on those because you forget some of the stuff we don't use all the time. But yeah, totally agree. Some of them are, yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, councillors. Any other speakers? There being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. Late item 5.3, Lords Place upgrade. Project costings. Can I have a mover? Moved by Councillor McDonald. Second by Councillor Power. Any speakers? Councillor Kinghorn.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 8. Sorry, I'll just get into it myself. I'm just wondering why they're talking about unforeseen costs in relation to the furnishing and fencing off of the dining pods. I'm just wondering why that was unforeseen.
Ask Acting Director Theakston just to be on standby. With the dining decks, there was a problem. A safety audit was done of the decks, and it was recommended that hand railing was put on, and I understand that was that additional hand railing. That was the additional cost under point, which is also, I understand, why it's slightly delayed on that.
Is that all, Councillor King?
Yeah, well, that was the main one. I mean, it is like well over 10% above the budget. So, you know, I suppose when you add all those things into it, I guess I can see where it goes. But I just, when it said unforeseen, I thought it shouldn't be unforeseen. But anyway, that's just me.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is just with regards to the flooding that occurred in Lord's Place earlier in the year. I'm just wondering and whether it's included in this report. Was there any claim made against council by any of the businesses in Lord's Place with regards to that flooding?
Mr. Chair, no, there was no claim, but we don't tend to talk about legal matters. The cause of that was a blockage in the system. I hope you nod, Acting Director, that problem. Thank you.
What caused the blockage?
Fine, that's fine.
I'd have to go back and check. It was debris, I believe.
Thank you.
Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you to the Director, CEO, for providing this report. I noticed it's $179,000, nearly $180,000 over the budget with council allowed. And I like the itemised numbers, but there's no figures there for what each individual cost was, like the flower pots or the seats or the decks or whatever the case may be, or whatever the infrastructure we're talking about replacing and all that type of stuff as regards to underground piping and all that type of stuff being replaced. I would have thought we would have received a report that said what all these things cost us, like as in the labour and the contract and all those type of things there. That would be a more informative report than just saying, oh, well, we budgeted $1.4 million, but we've gone to $170,000, $180,000 over the limit, is basically what the report says.
Thank you.
I hope we will get an itemised account.
Any other speakers? I'll put the... Oh, sorry, Councillor Evans.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Off the back of Councillor Duffy's comments, I appreciate the report and the dot points of where we've run over costs, but it would be good to have an exact figure of, if we can, some of those items, to know sort of what the big issues were. And I think Councillor Duffy sort of touched on it. If we could have a breakdown on what the actual civil works costs and the upgrade of the services and the road base and all that, and then the cost of the additional features we've added in, if that'd be good. Thank you.
Councillor Whitten.
Chair. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
After you, Mr. CEO.
Mr. Chair, I think I might do a councillor briefing on that, rather than just a sheet to you. As the best approach, possibly to explain.
Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question through you to the CEO. Is the project finished? Or is it, because I just note the word costings for the upgrade stand out.
Well, I wrote that sentence, Mr.
Are they costed into this already, or are they an addition?
That report is.
So technically, there's no more cost.
I never say never.
I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. Councillor Duffy was do that. The Chief Executive Officer will now advise the Council if any written submissions have been received relating to any item advertised for consideration by closed meeting of Orange City Council.
No such submissions have been received.
In accordance with Local Government Act 1993 and Local Government Act General Regulation 2005, in the opinion of the Chief Executive Officer, the following business is of kind as referred in Section 10A2 of the Act and should be dealt with in a confidential session of Council, meeting closed to press and public. 6.1, Lease Cafe Orange Adventure Playground. 6.2, Lease Part Post Office Lane. And 6.3, contract Icy Road water treatment plant generator and main switchboard design and construct are classified confidential under the provision of the Section 10A2 of the Local Government Act 1993, which permits the meeting to be closed to the public for business relating to C, information that would be, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person of whom the council is conducting or propose to conduct business. Can I have a mover that we go into closed? Moved by Councillor Greenhout, seconded by Councillor Duffy. All in favour? Against? Carried.